Morning. Today I'm going to tell you about the time I got fired. I was pretty young at the time. I was about 19 years old, something like that. And this new shop was opening up on Guildford High Street, a company called MVC, and they were competitors to HMV. And they had this swanky new system of taking the names, addresses and phone numbers of everyone who bought anything there so that they could market to them. You know, exactly how the world works now, all in a digital kind of way. But back then it seemed groundbreaking in some way, although I'm sure it wasn't all that novel. I remember my dad telling me about a company he worked for in the 70s who was already doing that. That was Harrods. Of course, everyone wanted an account at Harrods. So that was why they had a computer system long before most companies had computer systems. And it's just, you know, pretty cool to get a new job, pretty cool to, meet new people, get to know them. And it was a brand new shop, so it had just been painted, and we were helping putting the shelving up and all the racks, and then all the boxes of CDs and vinyl and Blu-ray discs all started to arrive. So we were putting them in alphabetical order and by genre and all that stuff, and it sort of felt like you're really part of a team because you're setting up a new shop, so it's kind of exciting. So those first few weeks of working there, I really enjoyed it, and it just felt really good. But then when the shop actually opened, the nature of the job completely changed. Suddenly you weren't involved in the setting up and the running of it. Suddenly you just become a shop assistant, and so you stand behind the till, sometimes for 8 hours a day. That's it, just standing up behind the till. Oh, ducklings. So serving customers, which at first was a bit of a novelty. You know, after a few days that novelty kind of wears off, and it can just get a bit boring. I think on reflection it's that sort of chain of command thing kind of happens when the shop opens, because suddenly it's not like it's your shop anymore. It's like you're just a shop assistant. And of course it was never your shop, but you just, in a funny way, just felt like part of a team setting things up. And the management are saying, you know, this is going to be like this because of this, and you're kind of in on it. You know why things are happening and the way they're happening, and you just feel part of a team, and it's really nice feeling. I think we all want to be part of something, don't we? We all want to belong to something. The nature of the job suddenly changed when the shop opened, and suddenly you're just a lowly employee, a shop assistant standing there, minimum wage, if there even was a minimum wage in those days. It certainly wasn't a big wage, let me tell you that much. So you start to feel very much like just a cog in the machine, and you haven't got so many reasons to talk to the management anymore, and they become a bit more separated. Anyway, after the shop had been open for a couple of weeks, the branch manager, who was a really nice guy, and I like I said, I reckon I was about 19, and I think he wasn't much older than that. I would guess he was probably about 24. And he was a nice fella. And he called me into the office and he said, "I've got some really bad news for you." I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "The area manager has said the shop is not performing quite as well as they had hoped so far, and he's told me to let someone go. And no one has done anything wrong, but I've chosen you just because you've been late a couple of times this week, and no one's done anything wrong, so that's why I'm choosing you, because you've been late a couple of times this week." I went, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah, that's all right, that's fair enough." And I had mixed feelings about it, because on the one hand I liked having a job and having some money coming in, and it's good to just feel useful, feel like you're doing something. On the other hand, the job had quickly become repetitive and stale. So kind of mixed feelings, but then I didn't want to be fired, but I felt he was very sort of fair and polite about it. And is it fair, reflecting on that further? What about workers' rights and financial security and stuff like that? Let me know what you think about that. Is it fair to fire someone just because they've been late a couple of times? I never really thought about that before. But anyway, So I shook hands with him, said, you know, no hard feelings, and off I went. The reason why this worked out in my favour is because my dad, who didn't want me to be unemployed, made a few phone calls and put me in touch with one of his friends at a company called Rand Computer Systems. I have no idea if they're still around, and managed to get me an interview, which was very nice of my dad. And you know, I was living at home with my parents at the time, being, you know, 19 or so, and he didn't want me, you know, hanging around the house, not being useful, probably getting a bit depressed. So I got the interview. The guy who interviewed me was a nice fella, and we got on well, and he gave me the job. And so I was, all of a sudden, I was a trainee computer programmer. The reason why that worked out so well in my favour is because I'd gone from being a shop assistant, and I can't remember what the salary was because this was 31 years ago, but it was, you know, it was about as low as you could possibly get for a full-time job. And then within 2 weeks of losing that job, I was earning probably more, almost definitely more, than the branch manager who had to let me go. And that sort of felt like a sort of an amazing redemption in a way. That, you know, I knew my skills were not being, whatever my skills were, they were not being properly utilised. Well, they didn't, you know, that's very much a 20, 25, 50-year-old way of putting it. That's not what I thought at the time. At the time, I just kind of thought, oh shit, I've lost my job. I was unemployed for months, and then I got a job, and then I was only employed for, I don't know, what was it, 3 weeks, and then I've lost my job. Fuck it. But then to, you know, go and get this other job, and it to be much better paid and to require a lot more brain work was a great thing. In the long run, I ended up absolutely despising that job too. But then I think that was kind of inevitable because I'm a musician. I've always wanted to be a musician, and a day job can really take it out of you and leave you with not enough energy or brain power in the evenings to work on your music projects, and so you end up, your day job becomes your only job, which is really not what you want. But anyway, one other strange thing about being a trainee computer programmer was programming languages are absolutely full of mathematics and algebra. And I didn't know anything about them, and I got an E for my GCSE maths because I never tried, and I wasn't interested in maths. And while the teacher, Mr. Turner, moustache, hair on the sides, bald on top, classic 80s look, while he was telling us at the beginning of the lesson what we were supposed to do, I would just drift off and not listen and draw band logos in the back of my maths book. And then he'd go, right, now turn to page 37 and do exercises 1 to 14. And I'd look at them and go, oh, Jesus Christ, I wasn't listening to anything he said, and I'd have no idea how any of this works. And I sat next to an absolute brain box called Warwick Blandermere, and I would just copy his work. And therefore, Mr. Turner probably thought that I was pretty good at maths. A quiet student who's very good at maths. But that perception would have suddenly changed if he ever saw the result of my GCSE maths exam, where I got an E. You can't copy Warwick Blandermere when you're in the middle of a very closely and securely patrolled exam. Yeah, so I went into this job as a trainee programmer. It's just full of algebra. And algebra never made sense to me in school, because it would be like A equals 10, and I just didn't understand that even in that concept. So I didn't realize that A was like a placeholder, like a movable amount, an adjustable amount. I just didn't understand that. So I would read it, A equals 10, and I'd think, no, it doesn't. A is a letter. What are you talking about? And that was as far as my thinking went. But in computer programming, it's absolutely full of algebra. So there you go. That was the time that I got fired, and it all worked out okay. Hope you're having a good day. Take care of yourselves. See ya.